Hi, I'm Melita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian, and today I'll be doing my most anticipated January releases. I haven't done a anticipated release video in a while. I did them quarterly in 2022, and then like by the last quarter didn't do one because I kind of got burnt out. So we'll see how this month to month one goes. But basically in 2023 I didn't do them at all, and I found that I was kind of missing some of the new releases that were coming out. So I think this helps me keep me up to date in terms of what I am interested in that's newly coming out. But I also think it's really interesting to see the differences in terms of which booktubers are anticipating what books, because obviously there's going to be like, you know, the major ones that are on everybody's list, but then there's little ones that you don't really hear about until you go to a specific booktuber, because that's what they're interested in, that's what they're geared towards. So I'm hoping to kind of just throw my hat in the ring, essentially. Hopefully it's something that you guys hadn't heard about before that you are now interested in. So that's my goal. Go ahead and get into this. I'm hoping to be able to not look at my phone so much, but also get these in order. So first we have January 2nd, The Book of Fire by Christy Leftery. This is set in Greece, and we are following a family, a woman who's a mother and the wife who teaches music and teaches children how to read music. We also have the guy who is a husband and a father who paints, and his muse is the forest that is so near to their home. And then we have their daughter. One day though, a wildfire consumes their community and their home, and a couple years later they are rebuilding the community and their home, but obviously their lives have changed. They've lost material possessions, but also they've lost other things as well. The father can no longer paint because his hands got so burnt in the fire, but he is finding inspiration from his daughter who wants to give back to the community. The mother ends up going into the community and finds that they found the guy who set the fire, and he is sick, and days later he ends up dying, but it's questioned if the illness ended up killing him or if someone else did. So, and we're kind of following the mother's perspective in terms of her emotions when she saw this man that changed their lives and upended their community. So I think this is a really interesting commentary. I think it'll have a really interesting discussions. It'll be interesting to read about, particularly as California continues to deal with, and other parts of the world continue to deal with wildfires, not just due to climate change, but because of human error. Next, we have January 9th. The first one we have is Unsinkable by Jenny Walsh. This one is a historical fiction. We are following two perspectives. The first one is Violet in 1917, I think. She survived a shipwreck and two sinking ships, one of them being the famous Titanic. And people keep wondering why she keeps going back to sea. However, we kind of see that she has given up her education and part of her life to be able to keep her family afloat. The other perspective we go through is Daphne, and this is in 1945, I think, during World War II. She's in France, kind of grew up as like a child that no one really wanted, particularly after her mother died tragically. So she focused on her education and collected languages like candy, as well as trying to earn the approval of her father. She's approached by someone to join the French resistance. That's kind of where we're at. I actually have this. This was available through Libro as an advanced listeners copy for influencers. So I have my link down below if you ever want to check out Libro FM out. I highly suggest it. It's $14.99, same as Audible, except your money's not going towards Amazon. It's going to independent bookstores, and you can actually choose the independent bookstore it's going to if you so choose. So basically, if you use my link and sign up, after a month I get a free credit. This is not sponsored, it's just part of the perks. Next is The Atlas of Us. This is also on January 9th by Kristen Dwyer. We are following Atlas, who has been having trouble in her life, and to keep her kind of on the straight and narrow, is going to be doing some community service and clearing out trails in the Sierra Nevada. Every day has been really exhausting, and so hopefully that will consume her thoughts, as opposed to how the Sierra Nevada, or how the Sierras were her father's favorite place before cancer took him from her. She's part of a team doing these trails, but none of them use real names, so she's become maps. We also have Sugar, King, and something else, and I can't quite remember. With her team, she's finding that she's not putting up the walls that she's so used to putting up to protect herself in her day-to-day life, and finds that these friends know her better than anyone else in her personal life, which is making it hard for her, particularly as the end of the trail gets closer and closer every day, and she's going to have to figure out how to live her life without these friends in her day-to-day life, particularly King, who has become more than just a friend. This one I actually have on pre-order through bookshop.org, another who actually works with Libro FM as well, so that part of your purchase goes to an independent bookstore. Next we have January 16th. There's two, I think, for January 16th. The first is The Tusks of Extinction by Ray Naylor. This is going to be odd. This is a novella, and basically Moscow has been able to resurrect the mammoth. However, without anyone to show or anything to show the mammoth how to be a mammoth, they're doomed to extinction again. So they end up recruiting the late scientist who was renowned for elephant behavior. And despite being murdered over a year ago, her digitized consciousness is uploaded into a mammoth. And she then has to see if the mammoths can avoid poachers, as well as figuring out why they went extinct to begin with. So I think this sounds really interesting and really fun. It's like a eco thriller of sorts. Next, for January 16th, we have Witchcraft: A History in 13 Trials by Marian Gibson. This is a nonfiction where we're going through 3 different periods of witch trials in Africa, Europe, and North America, and how the conspiracy thinking has shaped our society. This sounded really interesting to me, and I'm always looking out for new nonfictions. And then another January 16th one is Night of the Storm by Nashita Perek. This one we were following a young mother, I don't know if she's young or not, following a mother who has been having some trouble lately. She's recently divorced. Her family doesn't approve of it. Her ex-husband is scrutinizing her every move to try to get custody of their son, and their son recently got suspended from school due to fighting. And now they are in direct line of Hurricane Harvey, as they live in Texas and her apartment complex is under mandatory evacuation. She goes to her sister's house, which she is at first unsure about because her sister's husband has been a little too friendly with her lately. But she goes in there anyway, feeling that her son is safest there. Other people end up arriving as well. I believe it's the husband's family. And so tensions rise to the point where at one point someone is found dead. Whether by accident or by murder, though, no one's quite sure. And our main character isn't sure which one would be better. This one sounds really interesting. It's also a debut. And then we have January 23rd. I have 2 for this one. The first is One in a Millennial on Friendship, Feelings, Fangirls, and Fitting In by Kate Kennedy. Kate Kennedy is a podcast host for Be There in 5 Minutes. It's supposed to be a mix of funny wit and seriousness, as Kate Kennedy kind of goes over the millennial zeitgeist, as well as being able to have in-depth thinking with surface level interests. I don't know, it just sounded really interesting, and as a millennial who doesn't typically think about the generational head-to-heads that seem to be going on lately, there have been a couple of moments in the last couple of weeks that for some reason it's been more prominent in my life. Once where Brad's coworker was saying that when she thinks of classic rock, she thinks of 90s, which I think are just fighting words in general. But I'm sure that Gen X and other generations had thought the same thing when we thought the same thing of AC/DC and Pink Floyd as classic rock. But then even my student assistants, who I don't tend to think of as Gen Z at all, but I guess they are, were talking about fashion and happened to be talking about some kind of punny book t-shirt and wearing it outside of the library that we work in and saying it's a very millennial thing to do, and I'm not sure how to feel about that. I don't know what that means. So I'm just curious about it. Also on the 23rd, we have No One Can Know by K. Alice Marshall, who I believe I've read from before. But this one, we are following a young woman who hadn't told her husband everything about her life. He knows that her parents are dead and that's about it. But when they find themselves in some sticky situation in terms of losing their house, her husband getting laid off, finding out she's pregnant, and their bank accounts going into the red, she decides to let him in on her last little detail in terms of that she owns part of an estate with her sister after their parents died. That's not all though. Their parents died, but it turns out they were murdered, and that people within the area of the estate believe that she's the one that murdered them. So this should be interesting. I'm very curious. I'm very kind of cautious about it. And then finally for January 30th, we have Bone Pendant Girls by Terry S. Friedman. This one we are following a girl who has seen ghosts since she was a child and is attracted to this necklace piece at a jeweler's convention that is carved in the likeness of a girl, and so she buys this piece along with its sister piece, only to find out that it's made out of bone and the girls that their likeness is after are actually missing. So that's all I really wanted to know. This one sounds really creepy and really interesting. So that is all of my anticipated releases for the month of January. Hopefully you found some interesting ones in here as well, and hopefully I can keep putting these out for you because I find it really interesting too. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting. If you made it this far, let's go ahead and put a bone emoji if there is one. Yeah, otherwise I hope that you were in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading, and I hope to see you in another video very soon. Cheers.